To the Grab Lives podcast. I'm your host, John Vargas. Thank you everyone for listening. Just to start off with our disclaimer, everything we say and do does not reflect the City of Los Angeles Fire Department. And please like and subscribe our Apple, Spotify, YouTube accounts. It helps the algorithm push to help other people who may need to hear this episode or many other episodes. I'm going to start off by talking about a program called the 343 Fund. And what this is, I'm going to have Angela on the podcast, and she started this fund in lieu of her husband who passed away, who was a firefighter from FDNY. And this program is designed to help firefighters find a holistic approach to healing. And they use psychedelic medicine. So they will look to find grants to sponsor someone to go do Ibogaine. Ibogaine's been a tremendous medicine that's helped a lot of people with PTSD, brain trauma, a ton of issues. It completely reframes the cerebral cortex of the brain. There's a ton of new data and things like that's been helping people. We did an episode with Corey Pullman, episode 43 on Iboga, and how this medicine is changing people's lives. They have a program where you can apply. You can go on the 343fund.org and you can apply for their program. And on top of that, if you're looking to donate and help a first responder in need, you can do that. They have a program right now where you donate $3.43 every week for a month. And that's a cup of coffee for a firefighter for about a month. And that's going to go towards sponsoring and facilitating someone's possible healing process. Amazing. Angela's going to be on in about a month. So, we talked about, pushing an envelope on, making people, I guess, see the future of healing. Right. And I think that's pretty much it. The second thing was I have a program as well that I had started. It's called the Inside and Out program. What this program is designed is to take in people to transform trauma. And it's a very invasive program. If you think you're ready, you can apply for it. And it's a 90-day program that's designed to develop your personal empowerment. This is an opportunity to establish a foundation for growth, adaptability, transforming your trauma, enabling relationship constitution to yourself and your partner, and eliminate barriers that stall you in your opportunity for growth. What this is going to entail, it's a biological, mental, spiritual, physical approach that I do that's very invasive. So if you're interested, you can just message the Grab Lives Instagram account and go ahead and just type in Inside and Out program. If you're interested, you can apply for it. I only take 3 people every 90 days. So yeah, that's pretty much it for that. Today I have Morgan Englund on the podcast. He's been on the podcast before. He was on an episode calling Healing with Sound Honesty. He's I won't say retired, but he left LAFD after 17 years of service. He served a lot of time at Station 11 over in MacArthur Park, and he was just going through his state of feeling really sick and dealt with his own PTSD. So now what he does is he does keynote speaking for TED Talk, and he does other keynote speaking for other conferences and things like that. But what he also does is he does sound healing therapy, which I'm still waiting to do with him and try it out. And he also uses MDMA and psilocybin to help people kind of get through their own state of healing. So I'm having him on because he's just a genuine human being, and I love talking to him and getting together with him. So we're going to just discuss, most of what he has going on and, discussing topics of how we transform, how we come into alignment, how we can see ourselves, the truest form of ourselves. So thank you everyone for listening. I love you. Take care.
It's time for Grab Lives.
I got these 2 TEDx talks
Yeah.
So that was something I've been really working hard towards. But what's new is that I didn't really get how important that is, you know, because that gives you, the reason I'm doing them at all is to give me the authority to speak on the subjects I'm speaking on.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't really take it in. I've been doing these TikTok things and trying to do a course and build a course and all this stuff. And I just went, wait a second, I'm spread too thin. What's my priority here? The TEDx talk.
Yeah.
And so I'm just really excited about that because I feel like I'm going to speak about, you know, the issues that we have in the first responder industry, that we might be able to solve, and bringing awareness to a situation that almost nobody knows about, for one, and then, you know, some cool ways to fix it.
Oh, what are the topics?
My topic?
Yeah. You said you have two TEDx talks, right?
Yeah.
So what are the two topics?
Well, they're both going to be on right now I'm talking about the culture of the fire department, which is not something that I was ever going to do. You know, I feel like, you know, we have the code of silence. Everything happens in the station, you keep it there. And even to yourself. So very difficult for me to open up about that kind of stuff, you know, and I want to do it with honoring the people and honoring, you know, the department and the job. But there's a serious problem, man. And nobody's talking about it.
Yeah.
Very few people are. And things are shifting, I think, but not necessarily in the right way either, you know, and with all this inclusive stuff, everything, you know, now you're lowering standards and you're not really getting what you wanted in the first place. So it's just about being human, man.
Yeah.
You know, like human to human. And I think a big thing is, you know, what really surprised me coming into the first responder world, especially you get your stripes, you get your badge, you've made it, you know, you're going to join the brotherhood now because you've earned it. You know, you've walked the gauntlet, you've made it. But everybody still kind of, you know, is tearing each other down like you're a rookie all the time. I'm just thinking, you know, sort of because we're tough, you know. It's like, dude, everyone knows you are. You don't need to prove it all the time. To me, anyway. I mean, we can just relax now and be, you know, really have a good brotherhood, fellowship, whatever you want to call it. But, you know, it's rare to find that.
I think there's extremes, and the LAFD is one of the extremes, you know, because we're so busy.
Yeah.
And we go to fires. There's some departments, they don't go to fires, you know? So I think there's that part. And I mean, it's the department's so old. So those traditions, they trickle down and those behaviors trickle down, you know, but I think, you know, I've really studied this for quite some time, you know, and I think what I've kind of came to a conclusion with is an environment like this, it has its own laws, you know, and you have to abide by them essentially. Right. And what I mean by that is, you know, like it's an anthropologic, you know, theme, right? Yeah. It's like if you go to a tribe and you're learning the dialect and their rites of passage, you won't be accepted unless you do so. And so there's a method to it, right? And you really have to do it with a state of like a self-awareness within yourself, and also self-awareness of what's actually going on from a zoomed out bigger picture. But, you know, you're right. I mean, there's always going to be an alpha male, but when you put so many alphas in one place, it can be very like a stirred crazy situation. I mean, if you're a beta person, it's really hard to survive in that environment, you know, and you're almost forced to be like that. And it's essentially organization of thoughts, organization of structure has to be, you know, timed out throughout each station has their own agenda for the day, you know, for the week.
Yeah.
And you have to abide by those laws, you know? So whoever is in a state of leadership really is important, you know, and someone who's really sovereign and not just beat down by the madness. And so I think over time, I think if each person gains better self-awareness and sovereignty and willpower, you know, to perform, to engage, but also learn to use things like rest as a weapon, you know, and not just to overtrain and overstimulate the nervous system. I think there can be some balance there, but I think it takes really a legion of people to come to the self-awareness part. And I think as we're like working with the older generation dying out or retiring, you know, we're seeing like a different generation kind of come through to have that, if that makes sense.
Well, what do you mean? What's the new generation bringing?
I think people are realizing what's more important to them. Like the job is not as important as it was in the past, where it was like all your eggs in one basket for a blue collar job. I think a lot of people are having more hobbies and things they want to do for their personal gifts. And I think that people are retiring at an earlier age, not doing the full 30 years. People are like realizing how hard it is on the body, how hard it is on their family and their marriage. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of the paradigm that's been shifting. That makes sense.
Do you think the department is supporting that sort of change? I mean, you know, when you're in a new station or you're on the job, you're expected to work a lot of overtime, that's your life, you know. And if you're not putting in the extra hours, you're not quite living up to the expectations sometimes. I mean, I know it's hard for me. I was raising two kids, young kids, by myself, and you know, I had to figure out what friend's house they were going to stay at or whose mom was going to watch them, and you know, overnight and stuff. And you know, you don't want to bring that into the firehouse, but at the same time, that's my first priority, you know. Yeah. And I need this job to take care for them, and at the same time, you know, it was difficult for me to work overtime, you know. And when I came to work, I gave everything I had, you know. I was like, and I'll sleep when I get home, you know. Yeah. But so that sort of mentality, you know, working all the extra hours and overtime. Plus, I think you guys are getting a sign hired like crazy, if I'm not mistaken. So how does that work with your crew? If you're not, you know, if you're taking days off, you're not working extra days and stuff like that, or is it still like that? I don't think it matters.
I don't think it matters at all. I mean, I have about a decent amount of time on compared to, we have some younger guys. It's in our station, so I think there's no judgment, you know, with you taking like a sick day or whatever. But each station has their own culture. Yeah, you know, I think
that's very true.
You know, so I think with that, I mean, obviously there's a common line of communication, like, hey man, are you calling off? Are you okay? Like, what's going on? But
yeah.
I don't think there's as much shame with that as much anymore. I mean, I had to call off a couple times, you know, because I had told other people, I was like, hey dude, if I feel not 100%, I have no shame in not coming into work, because I don't want to just be miserable. I used to do that when I was at an old traditional task force. I used to just have a small cold, you know? Yeah. And I would white knuckle the cold. And at some point I ended up getting walking pneumonia. I was working with pneumonia, and I had to tell myself, I was like, dude, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. You know, this is not working.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That sort of expectation is, and you know, you can understand for a while, but once you've kind of, you know, set yourself, proven yourself that you're capable, then it shouldn't be too much of a problem. But it is another rite of passage too. Yeah,
you have to see the career as a marathon. Right. You know, you have to pace yourself, and from being injured into being, you know, having some time on where I can recognize how valuable my health is, then I change my perspective. I have less shame when I need to call off work, when my priorities at home are more important. So I think, perspective from someone like myself is an opportunity to teach the younger generation that's coming on.
I mean, that's fantastic, because because I didn't know all that. You're talking about the understanding from a 35,000 foot level and that stuff.
Yeah.
I just, job do,
Yeah, right.
I mean, and go as hard as you can until you can't go anymore. And I love your perspective and the fact that you're centered and grounded and balanced enough to make those decisions. I couldn't make those decisions really very well. I didn't really know what was, I just, I didn't see it in the way you see it. And the people that do see it that way are really, it's easier for them to navigate the system. So for me, a lot of times it was like, what's going on here, and not understanding really how things work. And you talked about there's a department, sort of culture, traditions, and all that stuff. But then there's like you said, each station, you have your own sort of culture within that. And obviously some of those task forces we know are pretty gnarly to work at. But there are a lot of them that aren't known, that are it's very subtle, the stuff that goes on there that'll sap you even faster than, working at 11s or something. You know what you're going to get there. But when you're at another place and it's this subtle stuff that it can be really damaging. I've seen it happen to multiple people, and it's just, and at times it's happened to me too.
Yeah. And
it really bothered me, looking
I
back
call
on
it a good soldier syndrome. Like you just do what you're told and shut up. And, that takes away from our humanity. It takes away from our sovereignty. It takes away from our health. And it takes away from our ability to cope on a healthy level. I'm seeing the paradigm of like three things that's kind of equaling burnout stage, and it's really happening worldwide in general because we're so overstimulated with technology, and we're so overstimulated with the rat race and the hamster wheel of the mundane, monotonous, day by day rituals we have to do, in order to perform in our life. And it's, it's dysregulation, it's disembodiment, and it's disassociation. And so a dysregulated nervous system, what that does is means you're in fight or flight. You're not activating a parasympathetic nervous system where you're resting and digesting. And what that does is it inhabits cortisol levels. So when you have cortisol levels raise up, that means your hormones, everything else goes down. It's literally like a temperature gauge for yourself with cortisol levels.
Well, I just got into shame. Like my healing process from leaving the department was a healing journey, right? I also gotten to a point where I lost my voice, And I'm at a place where you need to stand up for yourself. And I just would take it because I didn't. And this leads me to some of the, in my research, we developed as human 3 ways to survive, physiologically. There's the parasympathetic nervous system, which causes us to bind together as humans. So there's safety in numbers, collective working collectively, that kind of thing. There's the sympathetic fight or flight or hide, right? But when you can't do that, the dorsal vagus nerve, the back part of the vagus nerve, literally freezes. So it's like going into possum mode. So you're walking and talking, but there's nothing there. You're frozen. And when I saw that, when I was like, oh my God. And I figured out what happened to me. And there's different times that's happened throughout my life. Childhood, for sure, one time at the LAFD. And that to me was the day that it culminated. I lost any motivation, any respect for my leaders. I mean, as a whole, there's some incredible leaders there, but, and for the department. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I kept working for another 3-4 years. And, but my heart wasn't in it. I was just, maybe I had a glorified view, but, thinking, when you join something, you're part of it. You've achieved this thing. And
it's part of that good soldier syndrome, man.
Yeah. I think I had it bad because that's what you really put it concisely. I mean, that's what it was. It's wanted to do a good job, go anywhere, go hard, go till you drop, that kind of mentality. And seeing you at, you're half my age probably, and you have such a great head on your shoulders in terms of how you're looking at this, how you're navigating it. And I didn't have any of that.
I have mentors that help me.
Well, that's another.
That's the big. I mean, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have my mentors.
I saw that happen for people, and I wish that would have happened for me. I don't know that really did. There were some people at certain times, but I didn't have any way of really navigating the system or really understanding what, like, some guy you've never met. It's like, hey, just throws a shot at you. You're just like, what?
Yeah.
What, did you really just say that? But then that's what you do. But I didn't have any shots, man. Why are we doing that? Why don't we just, work collectively to kick ass? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Aren't we a team?
Yeah.
And, and it translates, that kind of thing translates out in the field, because, I don't know. I was at North Hollywood. I'll never forget this. And so I was just getting pounded.
Was that
at the station.
60s or
89s?
89s. Oh, dude.
And we went,
is so busy.
We went on, well, I wasn't getting pounded like that. It was just a whole, people don't talk to you, and the AO's just, you can't, it's just all these games that were being played. Anyway, I was just feeling pretty low, and we went to a school thing, and I was a new guy. I just got off probation. And the captain's like, hey, Morgan, because I guess he could see I was just kind of there, not really on fire. And he's like, man, you're an Ellis City fireman, man. Let's show him what. It's like, oh, I am? Oh, I thought I was a piece of shit. Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. Let me just put my other hat on, So yeah, mentors, I think. Oh, what I wanted to mention was, you said you're getting certified on the truck.
Yeah.
Right? So what baffles me also is there any standardized program that you take from beginning to end to become certified on any apparatus?
There is not.
No, there is not.
No.
So therefore, it's left up to the decision of the captains, the rated members.
Yeah.
So it's really a political decision. It has nothing to do with ability.
Oh, for sure.
I've seen guys that were so capable not get certified. The captain said, I'm not going to certify him until this guy's ready. Why? Why are we doing that? Why don't we reward merit? I don't think we do in the LAFD reward merit enough. It doesn't have to be all the time, but a good job every now and then goes a long way, man.
Oh yeah, dude.
It really does.
Yeah, it does. I like to bring it back to what I was mentioning about with those three things because they're super important. And so that I mentioned being dysregulated, like the nervous system. So being disembodied is a hard concept for people to understand. And what I mean by being disembodied is you're ungrounded and you're have a lack of self-awareness. Just because you're conscious doesn't mean you're self-aware. And that's a form, being self-aware is a form of embodiment. And knowing how to navigate self-awareness at a scale of reflection, like honest self-reflection, like that really helps you to attune to what that embodiment is. So now you have this astute signal within yourself to know when you are feeling ungrounded and your nervous system is dysregulated. And it kind of leads into disassociation. I was, for years, dude, I was just the best at disassociating. But I used to disassociate with alcohol. And when I didn't use alcohol, I would find any other way without a substance to disassociate, like doing tasks at home, or playing video games, or nicotine, or caffeine, or even just like zoning out. Like, dude, one of my favorite things to do after a long day is just to zone out and doom scroll on my phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but to have the self-awareness, I know now when I am disassociating, and I know when I'm going to disassociate. Like if I'm having a fight with Haley, I'm going to go outside. I'm going to disassociate for a second but I know that I'm conscious about that disassociated state. So what I want people to understand is like, if you can work on those three things, man, you can really gain a sense of leadership within yourself. And I don't like saying the word authenticity anymore, because you can be an authentic asshole. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
But like being sovereign within yourself, and what that means is like just being true to who you are and speaking your truth, no matter what the consequences are with other people. And that can be a threat to others when you activate that sovereignty within yourself. And what I've noticed is like true leaders notice people with true sovereignty, because they carry that same dormant key within themselves as well. And they will identify it and become a mentor to that person and help them gain access to what they have and teach, essentially, right? But disassociating is a very common thread within our line of work, because we work so hard, man. And we are so busy. And what I mentioned before, like the rat race and the hamster wheel, man, like it's just common, you know, no matter what. Just be self-aware that when you're on it, that you can get off of it at any moment. And so these are super important, just to kind of relate and manipulate within your field of vision, you know.
Yeah. So how do you do that at work?
At personal practices. So for me, every 3 hours, I take 3 minutes to myself. So I will use binaural beats. I have this one I use. It's called Mind Flush. I'll listen to that for like maybe 5-10 minutes. I have a grounding mat at work, so I'll lay on that, and within 15 minutes, I can feel my nervous system reset.
Insane.
I use a stress reset technique with my body, and it's done through Human Garage. We did an episode with Human Garage, and I've become a practitioner with Human Garage. So I do that every day. It's like 15 minutes. You can YouTube it, and it's free. It's super simple, helps decompress the spinal cord. Sometimes breath work. You know, I have there's a breath work app you can get. It's called Breath Work without the O in work. And there's so many different types of breath work they have on there. But usually like stimulating the parasympathetic vagus nerve. Or sometimes I will just sit there in silence. You know, if I'm on the rig, if I'm in the tiller bucket, or if I'm on the rescue, or I'm in the kitchen, or I go in the recliner, I sit there without my phone, and I just sit. No movement and silence.
Stillness.
Yeah, and I'll actually ask myself questions, you know, like, am I relaxed right now? And I give myself a scale out of 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. Usually I'm not relaxed, so I'll put myself into a state where I scan my body from head to toe, and then I relax. I put an intention into relaxing that part of my body. But this comes from years of practice.
This is a new term that I've heard recently: emotional intelligence.
Yeah,
I was an emotional idiot.
Same.
But you know,
same.
But what comes with that, the pain and suffering that comes with that, forced me to become intelligent about it, become knowledgeable and educated about it. And dude, you're way ahead of me. I love that you're really putting this stuff into practice, and you know, on the job, and it's really good to see, because you could have a great career, you know, and then the end of your career. And that's another thing, you know, I'm in touch with a lot of people, retired, it's that, you know, it's catching up with them now, and who's taking care of them, you know?
No one.
And why aren't we, I mean, what you got it with not knowing nothing, knowing that you have a kind of job where it's become sort of an identity, you know, it's what you do. It's everything, you know, and then all of a sudden it's gone. I mean, that's gotta be, well, I know it is really hard, you know, but I did 14 with LAFD, but you know, you're doing 30, 35 years. And anyway, maybe we're getting off topic. I just wanted to say that your emotional intelligence is off the charts. And if you can bring that into the department and have it accepted as, something, not shunned and
Yeah.
put down and say, oh, you're a weirdo. I think it could really help the members that are working their butts off.
Yeah, dude, you know what? I mean, that's why I have the podcast, because I can't expect, people to use me and then people to listen, you know what I mean? But what I have to also recognize is like, I don't have this ultimate poise within myself. Everything I've learned has been through pain and suffering, essentially. And because I've had like traumatic brain injury history, I had extremes of nervous system dysregulation and extremes of pain and extremes of anxiety and depression. And it forced me into the life I live now because of, what I had. But I hope people will just recognize, because of my extremes, you can see me as a mirror to realize, what people are going to lead themselves into ultimately, which is a sense of chaos, with their physical meat suit we live in, and our nervous systems, so I've studied these things, I've studied so much of this stuff, and I truly study the human spirit. It's one of my, I'm so fascinated by it because we're so resilient and powerful. And we've just come under this paradigm of living that we're powerless within ourselves, which is so not true, man. So I hope people can just listen, with open ears. And I'm here to challenge belief systems and systems in general, and to really have people question their identities, essentially, and their belief system and their values, and reorganize them to where they are harmonizing with natural order, the flow of life. Because
Absolutely.
if you're against that, it's not going to work.
Yeah. No, it is. It's, God, you said something a minute ago that I wanted to talk about, but then you said something else interesting and I totally lost it. Just remind me what we were just talking about.
Just the entirety of it all, like, from nervous system to embodiment to, I don't know, man, to teaching, to extremes,
Yeah. Well, I feel like I've been kind of harsh or on the department and stuff, and it's not my intention, at all. But what I'm working on specifically, when I hit a point about a year after I left where I was driving and I couldn't see tomorrow. Like had no hope left. And I remember seeing my first suicide. It wasn't on the job. It was in New York City. I was walking to the YMCA, and the Chelsea Hotel is about a 5-story. And this woman had just jumped off, and I saw her, right after she hit, and she didn't have any shoes on. And I was like, how could you jump from that high without shoes? I mean, even if you're going to kill yourself, it didn't make sense in my body, in my mind. But that was how hopeless I felt, the thing that I got from that was that she must have had no hope, bereft of hope in order to do that, especially without shoes on. And anyway, I was at that moment and I was completely disembodied. My mom ended up calling me out of the blue and say, what are you doing? I was driving. She heard my voice, I think. She's like, come over to the house. And at that point, I didn't even know she could physically call me anymore. I think she'd had a few strokes. And so I went over there and that was the beginning of the healing for me. I went through a kind of a year of disembodiment, and then I knew that I'd lost my voice, like I was telling you earlier. I knew that I was at such a low frequency. Just I was in that dorsal vagal freeze. I was just frozen. And but I wanted more. I knew there was more. I felt like something had given me this gift of life, God, the universe, whatever, some creator, and I wasn't living the gift that I was given. And so I want to, I remember before I got on the job, there's a kid, I worked with as a paramedic, and we worked together, and he was a brand new paramedic. He's all stoked on life and everything. And I was going through a divorce, and she's trying to take the kids and everything. And I remember looking at him going, I wonder if it's possible to be that happy in my life again. And he was sort of my signpost, the thing that I was reaching for. And when I say that I've seen this happen to other people, some of the stuff where it sucked the soul out of them on the job, I went, transferred out of 89s to another station. And I got there, and this guy was my relief. I knew he'd got on the job, but I hadn't seen him in 5 years. And he was stooped over, balding. His eyes were just dead. There was no life in them. And I remember saying, what did they do to you? Not what happened, but what did they do to you? Because I had my experience, some of the more tougher places, and I didn't have this ways to navigate, I think, or really understand the whole system at that point yet. But it changed his life. He was the opposite. He was where I was when I first met him, and it was so sad because he was so full of life. He was the thing that I looked up to try to reach someday. So,
what's interesting about that? They call it casting when you're stooped over like that, and you start to almost like curl up. That's like the same position we die in and the way we come onto this planet.
Wow.
So
what do you look like, man?
Well, the reason why we do that is because our body wants to be safe again. So when we're in utero, that's when we're the safest. So our body will cast itself into that state, but it's bogging down because the nervous system is so eradicated that it starts shutting down and shunting itself. And so the body starts curling up into that state. Kind of interesting, huh?
It's fascinating. And I was just talking about or researching, I don't know what I was doing, but this idea of being safe, when you're in fight or flight, if you do the things you're talking about, nervous system regulation, and you can regulate that, let your body feel safe again, then you can start to heal. Maybe you can't do that at work, but, actively doing that and recalibrating your nervous system, because we are in a fight or flight. Like you were saying, I sleep all night. I'm like, well, you still know that you could go on any call at any moment all night. So you're kind of asleep, but you're also ready to go 100%, right? So not super, super restful, but it's nice that you're getting some sleep at work, but you're still in that fight or flight state. So, whether it's come on the way home or when you get home and stuff, having ways to regulate and calibrate the nervous system back to a parasympathetic state. So we're not always in. Oh, what you said earlier about the cortisol, the high levels of cortisol. Yeah. So we go on gnarly calls, whatever, you go on a call, you get the rush of adrenaline and cortisol. That's what we need it for. That's what it's designed for. But when you're in a system that you're always shoving everything down, and this sort of macho, stoic, culture, that creates its own problem. It causes your body to release cortisol, elevated levels of cortisol, sustained over time. And that produces obesity, diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, PTSD, depression. I mean, it's horrible. It's like, if you wanted a culture designed to kill people, this would be the culture. And in one of the things I was talking about on stage is that, a culture of brotherhood where we really, look out for each other and support each other. It changes everything. It activates our vagus nerve, which binds us as human beings. We release dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin. It really connects us together, makes us a stronger team, more confident, better, clear, more focused, better able to do the job. So it's almost amazing how one culture's so detrimental and the other culture is like, well, and you told me a story about another LA City guy that became a fireman somewhere else, and he walked in the station already, all the armor on, ready for the shots to start flying. And they're like, "Hey, bro, come on in. Let me show you where the thing. You know, some
like
coffee."
Mike Kim.
I didn't want to, mention any names, but yeah,
That's a good one.
But yeah, that really, I'm so happy for him, man.
Yeah.
Because that's how it should be. I believe that, because I know for me, I'm at my best then. If I'm trying to throw a ladder, going, "Oh God, the AO is going to crush me for this. The captain's going to say, yeah, the senior fireman," you're just like this. But if you're like, "Hell yeah, I'm going to throw that ladder," and you throw that ladder, you got that stress on you for that. You're going to screw it up. You probably flip the 35 the wrong way, or something like that, or, do something stupid that you know how to do. And then you get a fire and it flows, man. Cause you're just in flow. You're not, I'm worrying about who's judging you or whatever. And I get the thing behind that is that we need to create stress to train people to find out what their breaking point, especially in the tower, in the rookie year and stuff like that. But without
shame,
with shame. Well, so the military model is they come into the service, they go through boot camp, you break them down, and then you build them back up in the image you want, right? And I think that we could do a better job with the building back up part. The breaking down part, we got nailed. I mean, we are professional with that, but building people back up to really be the best that they can be, I think we could do a little better on that.
Well, I think some people are just winging it, man. They don't truly know how to teach, essentially, right? And so, talking about, just being on the truck, for LAFD, we have an apparatus operator. He's like the alpha dog,
right?
Like ultimate firefighter there could be.
Sure.
Right. Essentially, in the LAFD
Supposedly.
eyes, right? And so, I did come across an incident where, I was on a fire, and the AO I was working with, he is my classmate. He's a friend of mine. And so there was an opportunity to teach the rookie guy who just got probation, right? And we're opening up this pretty large rolling steel door, and he had him go do it. And it was not emergency. The fire was like, just extended into the walls, into the attic. And so it was a really large commercial building. So there's no fire. The fires are put out in that area of the building, but we needed to open it up. So he had him do it. And he wasn't doing it correctly. And so he yelled at him, and he pulled the saw away from him and gave it to me. And so I just did it anyways. But granted, where we were standing, I was standing in a foot of water, and there was just debris all over the place, like sharp objects. And so when you're opening up the rolling steel door with the rotary saw, it was really challenging. It wasn't easy. So
how'd you make that cut underwater?
Dude, it was tough. So when I did it, I finished the cut or whatever. And afterwards, I told the guy just got probation. I was like, "Hey man, like, I want you to understand that, I don't agree with the way the apparatus operator told you. It took the saw away from you, the way he yelled at you and he shamed you. Because now the next time you do that, you're going to feel nervous. You're going to be afraid to make a mistake. So I want you to understand that we have to just put this aside and remember that it's okay to make a mistake." So that was an opportunity for me. And then I told the apparatus operator, I was like, "Hey man, like, why did you do that to him? Like the next time he's going to do that, he's going to be nervous. It's not a good teaching method." And he was like, "Yeah, but," I was like, "No, there's not. Yeah, but it's not a good mechanism to help someone learn and recover. He's learning. He's barely on the job, and so that was just an experience, right, of shame-based teaching.
Yeah,
right,
I mean, I saw that first day as a paramedic. It's and I get it. You want to create that stress, but you also want to teach. I mean, these are your crew, right?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that they're dialed in, man. And that's my philosophy anyway.
Yeah.
So, and there's, there was great times. I had amazing times. There were some tough ones, and I saw some really tough stuff. And you mentioned Kenny earlier.
Yeah.
That was, I don't want to say any names or anything, but I spoke to a captain after that was very close with him. And I was too. I mean, we were opposite shifts at 88s when I left, and he was always so supportive of me and everything. But this captain kept his crew there, when they found out. They wanted to send them all home, and he kept them there, to talk and to handle this as a crew, so we're not going, because we really don't know what's going on with each other, what might hit somebody sideways and stuff. So it was such a cool leadership move, to stand up for his crew like that and understand that, we are fucking human, man.
Yeah, I know.
You can pretend all you want, but you're human. Like everything that affects me is going to affect you. It could be a tiny little bug or a knife, gun, whatever. We're human beings. But we erase that out of the equation so that we can do the job. And I don't feel that we need to do that in order to be really kick-ass at this job. That's just I never really quite understood that. I mean, I guess I'm not an alpha male, but I mean, if I need to step into a leadership position, I'll step in, but I don't need to. It's not something I need to do.
Yeah, the thing about Kenny Brink, like there was a lot of gossip going around and a lot of hushed truths going around that really disturbed me, and that's why I started this podcast.
Really?
Because of him. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, I started it because of him, and then because I didn't see action and application for, because right before that was I think it's September, which is Suicide Awareness Month. I think it's September or October, one of the two. They made a whole deal about it. Let's help. Reach out for help, and this is like a year after I just went through my upheaval, and I went through a pretty deep, dark place with myself, and I just gotten out of it and been back at work, and I just had a really hard time with the reaction that was done. It was a disservice to the member. It was a disservice to everyone else on a collective scale. It was a disservice to the tradition of mending and blending brotherhood and sisterhood. And I just had a really hard time with it, man. It didn't sit well with me. It was really hard to swallow that.
You mean the reaction from the
let's say administrative leadership.
Yeah.
And I think that was what bothered me the most. And I think something needed to get done. There needed to be more voices like yourself, other people to talk about the struggle, to talk about what it feels like when you feel all alone and everything's crashing.
Bro, I got to tell you, I about 2 or 3 weeks before that happened, before Kenny died, I picked my daughter up at school, and we were supposed to go to ice skating lessons, which is west, and she's like, Daddy, we had firefighter day. They came and I made a picture, and I want to take it to your old station. I want to put it up on the refrigerator. I'm like, oh no, come on, we got to go do the thing. Nope, we're going. Okay, fine. So we get there, and Kenny, I see all the crew, and Kenny walks out. This is another time this happened, and he looked. First of all, you got to know Kenny. He's like, he should be in the textbook. They picture him as firefighter. He's strong as an ox. You got an overturned car. Kenny, go roll that over and get he'd stay hours and hours later. He'd help anybody. He's always supportive of everybody, and it's just a kick-ass guy. And when I saw him that day again, I was just like, dude, what happened to you? The life was gone from his eyes. And I know that during COVID, all the stuff you guys went through and the department was putting you through and this bullshit, that people like that, that had been so committed to the department felt so betrayed. And that was a real loss, man. That was, I think we have some blame in that, We let one of the best of us go.
Well, I don't like taking blame for other people's actions. I think, and this is something I've sat with upon my heart, because I've noticed I've had a program set in place to help people for quite some time now, maybe like a couple of years. And I've noticed that people just don't want to change, man. They think they want to change. And when I give them the choice, I was like, hey man, you have two choices here. You can take this path or you can take the other path. And a lot of times they are so stubborn that they'll choose their pain and suffering over
because that's
the
what's
next path.
familiar, right? That's what they know.
I think it's
and
an
they're
addiction
comfortable
to
with.
suffering.
Well,
And-
that, but also the unknown is scary.
Yeah.
And it takes so much courage
Yeah.
to face these things about yourself, face beliefs that you've had about yourself for your whole life and say, well, maybe that's not true. This whole thing that I just dealt with shame. I found myself drinking every night while I'm making dinner. Some nights too much, but enough every night where it's like, I'm not hungover in the morning, but it's just, I'm trying to get somewhere in my life. And what am I doing? I'm stuck in a rut. I've always, since 11 years old, I started smoking pot, and I had different things with drugs, but always some sort of addiction, always something to fill that unfillable hole, And I had mentioned that I was drinking to my son, and we started talking about it, and I said, shame comes up as like, that's what comes up. It's not about not doing a drug or a tobacco or whatever it might be. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just that I need to deal with that root. But shame is something, those are the secrets that we have. Some of them will go with us to our grave. I know that for me, there were some, and they're not that bad if you want to compare things and all that stuff. But for me, they are. For me, I would never, ever share that with anybody. But I knew that if I didn't deal with the shame, that I would never get where I want to be in life. And it's an energy. And things like shame, we carry this energy in our body. We carry the calls, that we go on our body. This is energy. It has weight. And you know how I know? Because when you get rid of it, you feel so much lighter.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, I was carrying all this weight for so long. How did I even move, man? How did I get off the couch? How did I, let alone go to work and do all this other stuff? So it's a big one, man. That's for me. And I think if you really want to change and dive into it, you need to have a lot of courage, man, and an open mind, and to question the beliefs that you've had all your life and the people that have told you that.
Yeah. I always tell people to question everything.
Yeah.
Like, question it all. Like, even if I tell someone something, like, question it, dude. You should verify it yourself. And I hope that when I say something, that it resonates within you. That's the key. If something resonates within you, it's hitting a chord within you. That means that it's ringing true. And because truth is really hard to verify, right? It's subjective.
Yeah.
But the way I kind of explained truth to some other person was, if you look at a car that's driving on the road and you see it has a donut tire and it's wobbling, it's not running true with the other tires. It doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. It just means that it's out of balance and it's out of sync with the other three tires that are trying to run on the course, on the road, towards a destination. And so when we're working towards destination, there are so many different choices you can make. You could take the gravelly road, you can take the paved road, you can take the highway, you can take the road to nowhere. But in the end, you're going to end up at the same destination. So our goal in life is to understand harmony and how to understand balance. And that was what rings true. And so it's about movement. It's about understanding the laws of nature, the laws of the universe. If we're working in accordance with those things, then at some point we're going to have to move in that direction. And if you're making choices in your life that are moving against your own accord, the truth of who you are, your blueprint of your life, then what's going to happen is that circumstances will make you change. Either disease, loss, or accidents, injuries. And that's exactly what happened to me. I was living a life of alcoholism. I would drink, go to work, hungover, drink a bang, and go to fires. That's the life I was living. Sleeping with multiple women. I wasn't honoring my sexuality. I was being dishonest with myself. And the universe was like, hey, smack, here you go. Here's a head injury. Deal with it. And that's what happened to me, man. I was just like, not living in accordance with my life. And I was forced to change. Had it not been the head injury, I probably wouldn't have changed, man. It had to be something extreme because I was so stubborn and stuck in my own self-righteousness that I needed to use something. Something had to happen. Yeah. But people even still will have cancer and injuries and still don't want to change. And that's the stuff I've been seeing recently. I've been helping, multiple people who have illnesses, and they're on the brink of death. They're off maybe in recovery from their cancer, but it's like they still don't want to change, man. It's crazy.
It is mind-boggling. But that's what I found. That's why I say it does take courage to do that, because it's one of our it's a huge fear, change. I mean, I'm finding that a lot of people can't do that. And actually the sort of healing journey I want to take people on is called Path of the Bohemian Warrior. And Bohemian means, aside from being Bohemian, means also like unconventional or different ways of doing things. And then warrior, that connotes courage and bravery and honor and integrity. And you need all those things in healing, I think. It's really important. I'm stoked for you that you're at this age, you're on the job and you're doing this kind of work and bringing it. So you mentioned the cancer.
Yeah.
Like, and firefighters are much more likely to get cancer.
Oh, there's so many cancer stories I've heard of.
And
recently.
yes, I mean, I think, sucking in a car fire and stuff like that, certainly not going to help, and the stuff we're exposed to, but I just can't help but think that putting a lid on all the emotions and living this way your entire life, of course you're going to get cancer. What did you think was going to happen? You just shove it all in. We know that elevated cortisol levels, can cause these types of diseases. So why would anybody be surprised? And I think it probably has a lot more to do with that than it has to do with the stuff we're exposed to as firefighters. But I don't know. That's no scientific anything. But
our bodies are biologically really astute to detoxing, and healing is actually you're detoxing essentially. When you're healing, you're pushing out things from your system, whether it's toxins or even emotional toxins.
Yeah, emotional trauma,
mental toxins.
Stuff, yeah.
The body is so intelligent, and we've haven't honored the biological intelligence that we carry. We're like a quantum computer system. And the way I've come across it is like I've studied everything from Chinese medicine, and that's mostly most of my anchor of what I teach is from Chinese medicine. But deeper Chinese medicine concepts, more so ancient Chinese wisdom cultures, along with other wisdom cultures, and they take the entirety of the whole into play in something called the Jing Shen. And what the Jing Shen is Jing is the essence of all life, consciousness. Shen is consciousness and the heart. So they blend those two together, and essentially, the consciousness is the master, no matter what. Anything you do, doesn't matter if it's like you're going to take like a bunch of psilocybin with a therapist, you're going to do some ketamine with a therapist, you're going to go do some iboga, whatever it is, you're going to go detox, some parasite cleanse, or you're going to go do some chemotherapy, whatever it is, the consciousness is the master. So unless you go straight to the source of who you are, you're not going to heal the root cause of something. So all that information travels through the nervous system, central nervous system, passes through the heart. Heart carries information, a lot of information. Actually, most of information is carried there. And from there, it goes through the peripheral nervous system and through the energetic pathways of the body. And what they call it in Chinese medicine would be called the dantian, which is most of our life force is generated from those energy centers. And then it goes into the meridians of the body and into the more peripheral nervous systems, into the organs of the body, which carries even more information. Most of the organs of the body carry emotions. But what's interesting, what I found out through this method of Chinese medicine and mostly wisdom culture, because they don't teach this in traditional Chinese medicine really, is that the brain's not really valued in this system. It's actually just a sending and receiving center for the rest of this system. So all your brain is doing is that it's receiving information from what else is happening within this travel that's been occurring this entire time. And it could be anything, man. You know, like it's super interesting how fragile we can be when we put meaning to something, because nothing is really good or bad unless we think it to be so. That's kind of like like an old Shakespeare quote, right? But when you put meaning to something, that's what changes the game. So we talk about shame. You know, I've dealt with that for a long time because the way I was raised. I was raised with shame-based guilt, sin.
Yeah.
And so from that template, I learned how to shame myself into oblivion, essentially, where I would freeze up because I thought I was going to go to hell, or I was so bad for something.
Yeah.
And so because I put such divine meaning to it from my own self, since a child, I bled that into other wounds that are all self-inflicted. So over time, I think I had to unravel all that. And so when I see things come up, I realize the source and the root cause of it, and I can accept it. And when I accept something, I can stop it in its tracks from continuing its subconscious upheaval. So I think even Carl Jung had said, your healing and your boundedness of being whole starts from bringing the subconscious to the consciousness. And so he's a famous, brilliant psychoanalytical psychologist, right? Who really turned the dawn of time with how we view psychology, you know, but, you know, he's a really fascinating person. I don't know if you ever looked into his work. Oh, dude, this guy, like he was in school with like Sigmund Freud, all these famous psychologists. And what happened to him is after he left school, I think he went to Cambridge, not sure, but he left and went through this really strange, deep, dark night of the soul, where he started, he wrote a book on it, and he started seeing a collective shadow of humanity, essentially. He started seeing like demons and all these things. He started understanding like the shadow side of the human being, essentially, from himself, and like went to this really dark place. And he came out of it and realized, hey, we have to witness the shadow of ourselves because it's trying to tell us something. And so he brought that into his work to understand the shadow of who we are. And,
meaning what? Shadow, what would the shadow be?
Essentially, like, in order for there to be light, there has to be some type of darkness, you know, when it creates a sense of balance. You know, that's why there's the famous yin and yang, you know, light and dark, female,
No,
male.
I guess what I'm saying is how... So diving, I mean, the shadow that's what we work on, right? That's what either we need to let go of or bring into the light, right? And I totally get that, you know, without the dark, there's no light. I use that all the time. And the darker it gets, the lighter, brighter it can be. But I'm wondering, how does that differ with him than with another psychologist that's not diving into the dark parts of our existence?
I think you put more emphasis on honoring that part of us instead of
Oh,
sweeping it under the rug or running away from it. We have to take ownership by witnessing that part of ourselves. And what I've noticed too is, like, think about what a shadow is. It's behind you. So you need someone else to show you what that is. It's usually a blind spot that you're not seeing. And for us to do our own self-reflecting work on ourselves, it's bringing forth a humanitarian state where you need someone else that's going to navigate that with you as well. A friend. And that's why when you're in a relationship and you're in a marriage or whatever, that's one of the most difficult things, because they're showing you the parts of yourself you're not integrating or you're not allowing to actually come forth and be recognized, because you're avoiding it.
Yeah.
It's behind you. So that's why those are the hardest things in life, you know. That's why I always say, like, monks are cheating because they go celibate. You know, they're not using their application of practice in a relationship. That's one of the hardest things to do in life, you know. But I think when we honor the shadow of who we are. We give ourselves a sense of self-respect, unconditional love, and we can just accept that part of ourselves.
Well, I mean, that's a huge thing. And I'm glad I asked the question, because accepting it as just as important as the light, you know, it is just as important, right? So that's what you're saying. It's about accepting that and as a good thing, as part of us, because it's the yin and the yang. And we have to have that, right? It has to be part of us. So honoring it, I think that's such a great, my older daughter was having some trouble a few weeks ago, and she's saying, I'm just so down, you know, and it's really, she kind of gets down sometimes. And I just said, you know, then exactly what you're saying, honor it, because these are times, you know, it's going to get better. And it really made me start to think about life, how we go in these things and we can get so low. We think this is it, whatever there's nothing after this. It's hopeless. We're done. Right. But then it comes up, you know, to these heights that we never imagined before, and then it drips back down. And so I was really thinking about that. And as I've been healing, you know, these dips, because I would just fall off a cliff, you know, emotionally. Something would happen, and I'd just fall like off a cliff, and it would take me 3 weeks to come back into myself and kind of get grounded again. It would just destroy me. And so I think life is about those dips and valleys. And if you can start to heal, you can start to get to the point where you're just kind of on an even sort of uphill going, maybe little slight ups and downs. But if you can get it to where you're not having those deep downs, but a great contentment, you know, that's when I want to die, when I'm on that line going up, you know, see as far as I can get up to that frequency scale or level of contentment, just to say, yeah, man, this is a life well lived.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I had a pattern with that, you know, those deep down spikes, but I realized it was an unconscious pattern that I felt I needed hard things to grow. And so I would unconsciously do those things, put myself in a pit, and then pull myself out of it because I felt it made me stronger. And, you know, there was an understanding with that because of, I just carried a form of self-punishment, and that was a pattern as well. Like I felt like I needed to punish myself for something. And that also bled into all these other things, these other identities I was carrying, these other patterns of shame and guilt. But it had to be witnessed within myself to realize, like, oh man, that's why I did that. It's crazy. You know, getting spanked as a kid, you know, all those things led up to these behaviors that I was carrying unconsciously, you know, but it had to be shown.
Well, you know, it's really interesting. So many first responders come from shitty childhoods, right? You know, where they had to either step up or survive, you know, get through it or tolerate it. And I think we have a better understanding of the suffering other people go through, we want to ease that suffering for other people. So it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I think too, like the mental health industry, like has been more fixed on like an awareness of the struggle rather than overcoming it.
Well, that's just like our whole healthcare. You got into the Chinese thing that brought up. It's like we're completely backwards. We're we're not trying to be healthy.
Right.
We're trying to be sick so that we can get medicated with the drugs. I mean, that's the society we live in. So this whole idea of, and people are getting it and starting to question the whole, everything about it, whether it's the mental health industry or the physical health industry. We as people, the conversations we're having right now, talking about living in health, you know, being healthy so that we can really thrive. And that's why I brought up the culture, you know, this culture, and it's not solely first responders. I mean, it's everything. I know that it kind of started after World War I and the guys coming back from there and the Industrial Revolution and stuff. But I think it's time to reevaluate how well that's serving us. Because from what I can see, it's not really serving us as in terms of a culture and what people are coming into. I mean, it has its place for sure, you know. But as as a day-to-day thing, it's very destructive. And that's what I've seen. You know, that's why we have this silent epidemic of first responder suicide. I think it has a lot to do with keeping the lid on everything. And I just feel like this work's so important, just to be human with each other, like we were talking about. And you just start with that, and, you know, we're okay with each other. We can talk, you know, it should be like, I got your back, bro. If I'm working with you, I could tell you I got your back 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you go in, bro, I'm right after you. That was already pre-thought, pre-rigged, you know? But we, you know, if we can do that in an emotional way, I mean, think about it, you know, if we go on hundreds of calls, right? But every now and then you might get a call that it hits you sideways, man. You can't get it out of your head, really. It's always kind of there, and it just bugs you, you know? And so the fact that it bugs you means you gotta protect yourself by keeping that inside, making sure nobody else knows about that. Let's just take it that it's a call. It could be something else that happens, you know, but you're keeping it inside, and you start to isolate, because now you have a secret that you're ashamed of. And you start to isolate it, which hits on one of our 5 core human fears: separation from the group, death, basically. That's how we think of that in our limbic brain. So to make it okay to talk about things with each other, to really have each other's back, you know, we all have shit, man. It's like I scratch your surface, and I'm going to see stuff that you're not proud of. You're going to see stuff that I'm not proud of. And we can just be real with each other. We've already passed all the tests. We've already showed that we can do the job, you know? So now it's a matter of in a relationship with people that are doing a collective job. You know, we're doing this together. It's not individuals, it's collective. So I feel like we should have that from a gut sense, that connection. You know, or if we did have it from there, then it would be a much stronger connection, and we'd be, you know, everything I said before, better able to function collectively and individually.
Yeah. Well, I like how you mentioned like World War I, World War II, because those generations, they had no clue on like what shell shock trauma was. You know, so we've generally evolved to a state to where someone had looked at some of these vets, and they started studying them, and they put some type of language or a narrative to have some type of idea of what this was, right? And so over the decades and over the pass of time, like, we've been able to put an identification onto an awareness of what this is. The problem with what we're seeing now with the mental health industry is that we've now identified it, what these problems are, what these symptoms are. And so now everything is becoming an identification with your symptoms, and people are holding an identification with what this is, instead of trying to overcome it, instead of teaching how to overcome it, instead of understanding that these things are not a marker for who you are. They're actually just a lesson to teach you how to become a better person, despite your symptoms, but despite your past, despite your trauma. Now, if you feel safe only in controlled environments, you have not healed. And the point is to just get yourself out of the sequence of identifying with your problems, to overcome it, to feel safe in your body, to feel regulated within your nervous system, and to now see yourself as a better version to help teach and help other people. So I think it's pretty interesting that you'd mentioned that, because it seems to be like we're on this precipice right now for change, and it's really requiring like a collective like movement of people to realize. And I'm seeing it now with a lot of these great public speakers and stuff. Like just saying, hey man, I went through this, you know, like I was, you know, in Iraq or whatever, blown up, and I've been able to overcome it, and this is how I did it. And it comes through personal experience. There is no psychologist that's out there that's going to be able to help you with that, despite human experience. Human experience is our number one thing we're going to be able to use to help other people.
That's exactly, slipped my mind, but that's exactly what I want to say. It's peer sport. You've got people that were in the same, went on the same call with you. You know, they know that who better to talk to than somebody you can really understand. Like first time, a couple of years after I left the fire department, another paramedic I worked with a lot of overtime with, and talking with him was like, oh, I finally feel understood, you know, because you can tell people about what happened, but they have no idea. You know, you can't find healing through people that haven't experienced it. Like you were saying earlier, these critical incident, you know, we have the train crash or whatever, Chatsworth, and, you know, it's in the middle of that thing. And they sent out the psychiatrist. You're not going to talk to them. Like, what are they going to tell? They haven't experienced, you don't have respect for them. You know, you gain respect, and I think you would tell somebody that's experienced what you've experienced. You'd feel a lot more comfortable telling them and receiving healing, you know, in doing that, but not, I think, outside of. So I just wanted to say that's why I'm kind of passionate about this, is because we're here. We need to heal each other, man. And when I said the blame about Kenny, it's, you know, how do we miss that, man? If we missed it with him, we missed it with Kenny, then we're missing it, man, completely. Because if I saw him 3 weeks before he died, that motherfucker was gonna die. There's no doubt in my mind, you know, like it wasn't gonna go well for him.
Yeah.
And you know, there's people around, and how do we change that? And this is kind of what you were just talking about earlier about, you know, the healing and regulating. How do you do that at work? You know, because I'm not there to heal and regulate. You know, I'm there to do, you know, start IVs and kick ass, you know, and throw ladders and shit. But
it takes dedication.
And it also takes either a really strong person in themselves, or it takes an okay from the people that you're with to allow you to feel safe enough to do that kind of thing at work. Right?
Yeah. So,
you know, if we want to start saving people like Kenny and many, many others, me, you know, I walked away. I told my captain 6 months before I left. And it just occurred to me a few weeks ago that nobody from the department, anybody ever asked me like, hey, why are you leaving? Or like, is there anything we could do to change you? They're willing to walk. Let's say I was just the worst firefighter on earth and worst paramedic. Still, you've put hundreds of thousands of dollars into training and equipping me. You've
no one asked you anything?
I've got you know, decades of experience, you know, that you're going to throw away. And if not me, anybody else that would say to walk away. So why would you not? It just didn't occur to me. But then I thought, wow, okay. So because I know in my exit interview, I came in and so funny. My captains were there and chief. And this is like either the day of or a couple of days before I left. And the tension in the room was, I mean, you could cut it with a knife. It's like, whoa, this is kind of gnarly, you know? And, you know, he's like, so now he asked me, he's like, you know, why are you leaving? And I said, you know, it's just my time. I've no regrets. You know, it's just something I need to do. It's my time to go. It's like, okay, well, is there anything you could stay? I said, no, if there was anything, I would stay because of my captains, you know, and my crew right now and stuff. It's just got to go. And there was like a huge sigh of relief that I think, you know, I wasn't going to spill the beans or anything like that. And I had no intention of that. But on the other side of it, it just shows this culture of silence. You know, we can't touch that. We can't, you know, they're willing to throw that away. And I've seen this with the cops that I've talked to. The department's just like, they have a shooting, you know, and they're trying to get their head straight and they start writing them up for things. They start pushing them out. I mean, story after story of this. And it's just mind blowing because just take the money and the time and the experience. And then if you got somebody that comes back after a broken leg or a shooting or something, and they're stronger for that experience. You got somebody that had a mental issue or emotional issue, they've overcome it. They're going to be way stronger for that. They're going to be able to help the rest of the guys and girls coming up through the ranks, you know? So it just baffles me that we don't, in this day and age, recognize it, acknowledge it, and treat it, or do like what you're saying, not treat it, but live differently so that we're honoring it. We're honoring ourselves and each other as human beings, and our nervous systems, and our emotional health.
Yeah, it takes a like I was saying, like a dedication to self and focus.
Yeah, but I might be dedicated 100% to self.
Yeah,
I'm not doing that shit at work.
Some of it's poor guidance.
I don't want to take the heat. I don't want to give people ammunition. A lot of people.
Some of it's poor guidance too. Like you don't. Sometimes we just don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we have no idea. Like I didn't have any idea about this shit.
Me
Like I had no clue. But someone had to show me and tell me and teach me. So that's what helped. Because I fell ass backwards into this path. It wasn't like it was an accident really, and then just kind of trickled itself into what I'm doing now.
Well, once you understand, you understand little things about the world that we live in, our healthcare system, for instance, and you start to understand that you can heal yourself. In fact, you're the only thing that can heal yourself. Right. Other people can help you heal yourself, but they can't heal you. And so that understanding, once you crack the door on one thing, once the facade starts to fall apart in one little place, it starts to fall apart in other places, and you're seeing, oh, well, maybe this isn't true, and maybe there's a deeper truth to this, and maybe there's another truth. And then you start, if you want to, if you have the kind of mind to heal yourself, and you have the courage to do it, and the open-mindedness to go after that and look for truth, then you start to see that everything, this whole construct that we believe, most of us, generally believe, is false. And
I'm determined to believe like the systems that are in place right now are crumbling.
Oh yeah.
And so they have to crumble because
they're
not in alignment with like really with what humanity's leading towards, which essentially is I think we're rapidly evolving as a species. And as we are evolving, the shell that has been crusty and old that's been encasing us has to fall off. It's really like the chrysalis that needs to just open up, essentially. And then what comes through that is the miracle of metamorphosis. And I think over time, I think that's what we're experiencing right now, which is the struggle.
Absolutely.
When you're in the chrysalis, when you watch the miracle of a chrysalis opening up, there's the struggle of the butterfly starting to push itself out of its shell. And if you open that up with a scapula, or you open it up with an outside force, that butterfly wouldn't be able to fly. Oh. It needs a struggle in order to strengthen its wings and push itself out itself.
Interesting.
That's the miracle of metamorphosis, is that the struggle actually, it strengthens us to bring us to
And that's
flight.
my point coming back to, let's take care of these guys, people with mental, whatever it is, get them back, get them stronger. Now they've got all this to share, and we can all lift each other up.
I do want to talk about your methods of healing with sound. Because I think we didn't get too much into it last time.
Yeah.
And like how your process works with that. I know you're very talented.
Well, thank you for that.
And I know you experienced it yourself. We talked about your story with that, but I'm really curious on, what you do, how you value sound with getting someone to have like self-realization. You know what I mean?
Well, there's several parts to that. I'm if you're talking about the sound meditation that I did and that I do now that I've been trained in, that has many parts, and frequency is one of the parts. But there's also the psilocybin and the MDMA. I've had 3 now. My son and I went and got trained after I did the first one. We went and got trained together with the guy that invented the whole thing. And then my sister got her own training. And so a year ago, I did one with my son, again, life-changing. And then when I was dealing with this whole issue of shame and stuff, I really made a lot of a core truth to me, I'll just say it, was that I'm worthless, and I think that comes from abandonment issues. Another thing I couldn't say before, but now I know, straight out fucking full on abandonment, So, which is great because it made me a survivor and all that stuff. But it also, when your mother's not, it's like, well, you love, what I love you means you're not worth shit to me. I don't love you enough to be there, but, so I had these, sorry, we were talking about the sound and I was trying to make a point there, but anyway, I'll just tell you about the sound. So, what we do is we use, the mushrooms and the MDMA. The MDMA, also like ketamine to a lesser extent, but the MDMA blocks the amygdala from controlling fear. So when you're in the meditation, if a trauma, past trauma comes up or something, this is not going to shut it down, which it wants to do. It doesn't want you to have to go through it again. The psilocybin, which we know now, actually helps the brain create new nerve synapses. So like literally creating new ways of thinking and new grooves in your head. Like having what I was saying about the trauma that comes up. That's a groove, you have that trauma and you have the same physiological reaction over and over again. So, and then the frequency, we were talking about this, the tuning of the frequency, either when it meets another frequency, it either overcomes it or it harmonizes with it, or it, different things happen. But so what I've found in this healing, where you take the MDMA, that starts to do some breathing work, some deep breathing, that can get you there by itself, and then you take the mushrooms and then you go down into the sound. And the sound, it could be the buffalo drum, but it's one instrument at a time. And each instrument, when you're going through this 4 or 5 hour session, each instrument hits a different emotion, or it brings something out. We don't know what that is. Whatever comes up, we don't know what it is, but it'll hit something. And for me, my body will literally start shaking and going into convulsions, almost. My mind's separate from it, but I'm seeing what my body's holding on to so tight. It's holding on for dear life. That's what it feels like. It's just shaking like in the worst turbulence. And then at some point, this might be 45 minutes on one instrument, and then all of a sudden, the body starts relaxing, hands unclench, and you're just there completely at rest with that same frequency. So what I think the frequencies do is, if you have a trauma, that trauma has a certain frequency. And when this other frequency hits, and I don't know if it's discordant or it's not harmonizing yet. So it's stimulating that trauma, right? So that trauma is going through you until the charge is gone, till the electrical charge is gone. So now I can still think about that, but I have no physiological reaction to it.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's so you're talking about the tuning force. It's literally, I think it's tuning your body. And so the MDMA also opens your heart, so you can feel incredible love. It just dumps serotonin. So, so it's, you gotta regulate that. But all this stuff works together.
How do you regulate the serotonin dump with MDMA? I've heard about that.
So, if you're taking SSRIs or something like that, this is not for you. You can't be on psych meds and stuff and do this. This is so because you're using supplements or drugs to have an effect. The effect is not about getting high. That's it's not even, you don't even know you're high, because you're on this journey of, it really is a journey inside yourself. I never understood that until this. But the first journey I did, I had no idea I didn't even know this is what we were doing today. My sister said, show up and go. And turns out that the guy that did it, he was also saved by this because he was a Israeli special forces. So I mean, gnarly stuff that he went through.
Yeah.
He ended up being a drug dealer in New York when he found this, and this saved his life. This one session, and then he got trained as I did. So I went. He asked me to lie down. He said, "I'm going to give you these pills and stuff." Okay, fine, whatever. And we did a little bit of meditation, some breathing, and then I dropped into it. And he starts with some instrument, and like I said, each one I felt like an onion. He was peeling the onion off. At one point, I saw in my mind somebody like flipping a Rolodex of faces, and I didn't know who they were. It was just faces, didn't have any attachment to them. But I knew that it was death leaving my body. Just whatever death was, I was like, oh, that's what's happening. And meanwhile, my body was shaking like a leaf, like I told you. And then it finally stopped, and I was completely relaxed, completely at ease. And at that point, I had developed, I guess I had PTSD. I'll just say it. I mean, I hate the terms or quantifying anything, but whatever. I guess, I had those symptoms. I developed fears of things like flying. Even though I've flown a million times in my life, I couldn't conceive of getting into a confined space, little tube like that at 35,000 feet with no control, no way out. I couldn't. I did fly. I flew to Alaska, and it was everything I could do not to have just a full-blown panic attack. But the next day, after that ceremony, I had already bought a ticket and planned to take my little daughter to Kauai because I love Kauai. I want her to see it, and I was just going to white knuckle it. I just like, I'll get through it somehow. But the next day I picked her up at 6 a.m, and I mean, I'm seeing where it was gray before, I'm seeing color, back in the world. And she's asking me, Dad, what if the plane crashes? I'm like, shit happens. You got to take risks to have experiences and balance those risks. But I didn't have any kind of the fear that I had. It was just gone. 95% of the stuff that I'd accumulated or that I was struggling with and not even knowing I was struggling with was just gone. Just the fears were gone. The hypersensitivity, driving and like, what's coming, what's going to happen, sitting in a restaurant, watching the door, all this stuff was just gone the next day. And I was like, whoa. And I've done it 2 more times, like I said, and each time it's got me through a major obstacle in my life. And let's say this last thing, the last one about shame, it was when I dealt with that, and also part of it was in the sound meditation. It was like a boulder, an immovable boulder, and I couldn't see behind it. But once I faced it, moved it aside, all these memories opened up, other shames, but also, that my mother did love me, and the times when she really did show that, and I was able to see that where I couldn't see it before. So this is just powerful. I mean, if you have deep emotional trauma, I don't know any other way that is as effective as this. And I've actually got a guy through my TikTok, I've been saying, let's heal together type of thing. And I met this guy from Alabama, and he's flying out here to do this because it's almost like he's possessed with the suffering that he endured in his childhood. Like he can't get out of that rut. He can't see himself as anything other than a victim. And I go, bro, I know one thing that could change your life. And after listening to his whole story, I was just like, this guy needs an exorcism. And this not only gets stuff out of your body, those traumas, all those things we're carrying, but it's healing, it's so healing. So I'm just grateful for it. I've been trained in it. My son is just a master. My sister's excellent too. And they both did amazing jobs. So I'd love to share this with you at some point when you're not on the job anymore.
I was thinking
or
about
tomorrow.
how I mean, I love sound. I love sound in general. I've
Yeah.
done so many different sound baths and things like that drum, the animal skin drum.
Bro, that's so
That thing is there's something really primal about hitting the skin of a drum, you know.
But the frequency, like I'll put it
Yeah.
over you, it's like a shower of frequency.
Yeah.
You can't not feel, you know, it roils things up. It goes
Yeah.
through you into the floor. It's powerful.
Well, Haley has she's done shamanic training with, and what they do is they get and when I speak on shamanic training, just to verify what shamanism is that you're helping someone go into a different state. Usually you're changing their brainwaves to a gamma state, and what a shaman does is that the shaman can access the underworld, the middle world, the world we're in now, this 3-dimensional plane of existence, and the upper world. That's what a shaman can do. He or she can access all 3 worlds. So what a version of shamanism is that they get a drum, like a animal skin drum, and they hit it with a beat, and this beat has a rhythm to it, and it puts us into a gamma state. And so what happens is that person goes into almost like you're not unconscious, but you're conscious. It's very strange. You're in a deep meditation. And what happens is that person goes into a journey within themselves. You're not taking anything. And you go into a journey within yourself, and what happens is that person goes with you on the journey. And that person can see the blind spots within the spirit realm and can assist you in finding any, they call it soul fractals, piece of your soul that's been fractured from an incident, let's say a car accident. There's a piece of you that's been fractured off, and so the shaman can journey within you and find that piece for you and bring it to yourself. And so that primal beating of the drum is so profound. But I've seen people have these giant, I don't know how big yours is, but I've seen like 3-4 feet tall drums, and then when they hit that thing, dude, it's like it rattles your spine. Like, you know?
No, it really does. And then, you know, do you know what Koshi chimes? Have you ever heard those?
I mean, I've heard different chimes, but I don't know what those
well,
ones
these
are.
specifically are the A minor chimes.
Okay. Those are expensive, dude.
It's $60.
Okay.
Yeah,
$60.
it's a little. You hold them, and you can actually play them. You know, they have different rods in a circle around them, and then there's this little string with a little dinger, and so you can go brrr, like that, or you can tinkle them back and forth in different ways, and you actually play them.
Sounds like angels.
It's the most beautiful thing, but contrast that with the drum, you know.
Yeah.
So, and then we have this thing called the Shruti box. This thing is it's kind of like an Indian bagpipe. It's almost like a piano, but you open holes and it's an accordion type of thing. It's the most you can make it sound so dissonant, but then you hit a couple notes together, and then it harmonizes, you know, or you got the triad there, and so you can really take people from that dissonance and activate their whatever they're carrying, you know, that they need to get rid of with that, and then bring them into harmony, you know. And you still, so this play between dissonance and harmony it's everything, man. Tesla said, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And the more that I learn, the more true that is.
369 is like the codes to what Tesla had said. He said 369 is like the codes to the universe.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
the numbers, because
you're in the numbers, dude. I told people about that for.
Oh yeah, dude. So
I'm a master healer, motherfucker.
So 369 is the template for creation, essentially. And so Nikolai Tesla had discovered through sound, frequency, and vibration that 369 is the template of everything in a number form. And what he discovered is like, so for instance, the Fibonacci sequence, you know, the circular shell, there's a mathematical sequence to that, and it's 369 that equals the entirety of that whole. So essentially it's the essence of all things, those three numbers. And the way I've come into an understanding is that each number has an imprint of energy to it and a sequence to it. So the way I've helped other people is, you know, if you come do this program with me, the thing I'll do is I'll explain, you know, some of your template, essentially your blueprint of who you are through numbers, through some versions of numerology. You also use Chinese astrology, and other forms of finding out your blueprint. And so I can't explain all of my secrets to everyone, but I will essentially use Chinese astrology with numerology, and it's about 90 to 100% accurate. But Western astrology is not as accurate. To make decisions based off what the planet Pluto is doing is not as accurate as to what the Chinese had discovered, as they figured this out thousands of years ago on a wheel with numbers. And what they had figured out is that there's an energy imprint on each year. And so Chinese astrology is way more accurate because it's based off Earth energy, Earth imprinted forms of energy. And so when we're speaking about Nikola Tesla, like all these people figured this stuff out. They've already mapped this stuff out, man, a while back. And we think we can reinvent the wheel.
Oh, no, man. I think we're just scratching the surface of the ancient knowledge that's been on this planet.
So what I told you was basically you gave me your date of birth. I added up each number individually, and what that does equals a final number, and that final number is going to be your life path. And your life path essentially is going to show you your strengths and your weaknesses based off your imprint of energy from your template from which you derived since birth. And what that also can show you is that it could show you your blind spots, like I had mentioned. It also can predict your future based on your decision making. And so a long time ago, someone had read my numerology to me and told me the same thing I told you, because we have the same life path. And so what happened was that person said, hey, you have a life path 33. And in this life path 33 is essentially you're designed to be a master healer. And this was read to me when I was like in my early 20s, like probably like 22, I think.
Better go to paramedic school.
Yeah, I know, dude. So what happened was he told me, hey, usually master healers are going to hit a marker in their life where they're forced to heal themselves to help other people. And that's exactly what happened to me, is that I went through injuries and my own upheaval of life. And what I had discovered is that, it came true. And so I had just remembered, when I was going through all that, I was like, oh, dude, I remember that guy told me my life path was a 33. And I looked into it more and I started studying it more, and it made so much sense. When you combine numerology with Chinese astrology, it actually makes it even more accurate. It's insanely accurate how well it is. And even with the imprint of energy, the day you were born makes a huge difference as well. So I think what day were you born again?
Sunday.
No.
25th.
The 25th. So that's a 7. So usually you are much more intelligent. Right. Usually also to like hidden truths, hidden knowledge of like spiritual knowledge, even things with the body. So you're naturally intelligent with certain things, but you're also supposed to shift against old paradigms. You're a systems buster per se. You're a heretic. That's what you're designed to do through your own intelligence. Wow. So like my imprint, showed me so much because it showed me one of my major hurdles is self-doubt. Even though I know the truth of things, I hold my own self-doubt, and that's my own hurdle I have to get past. And with that as well is that I carry an extreme emotional sensitivity to myself and others. And unless I harness that vibration, I won't be able to help other people. So most of my life has forced me to find an anchor and groundedness within myself in order for me to help other people, or else I won't be able to do so because of how emotionally sensitive I am to my own emotions, that I could of self-harm and so forth. It's a pattern, but it's in my template of how I'm naturally designed to access, those patterns already. So without further ado, like if I help someone show them their blind spots through the numerology and Chinese astrology, it's pretty interesting because it helps people see themselves, and it really rings true when you read it. You're like, oh wow, this really makes a lot of sense. This makes sense why I got divorced or whatever. But with Chinese astrology, adding that to it is by the year you're born, right? And usually Chinese astrology, you have 2 friends, 1 enemy. And more so, your enemy year is your polarization.
Oh, right.
So you have to be careful when it is your enemy year that's polarizing your imprint of when you were born. So that year is time to lay low. And you can everyone is designed to take a loss no matter what. we're all going to take a loss.
Yeah.
So you choose that enemy year if you're going to take a 5% loss or a 50% loss based off your enemy sign. So I told you your enemy is the rooster. And so just be careful, like, to, make decisions on that enemy year. Like, hey, I'm going to decide to do this, do that, but it's not time to buy a house, get married, have a kid, and make big life decisions.
Oh, so it's not another rooster. It's the rooster year.
Yeah, I mean, you can conflict with other roosters, but it's more so pay attention to that enemy year. When the Chinese year comes around, it's a rooster year. Just pay attention. Like, that's not my year to like do things like big lifetime decisions for myself. When it's your year you were born, let's say you said you were a cat. That cat year that comes around is time to like make a business, make big decisions, buy a house, and it'll help you later in your future. So people have been able to depict this and like make huge life decisions based off Chinese zodiac signs. And ancient Chinese cultures have done this for a really long time, and they knew about this. So they would never do anything in enemy year. Like, if they would invade another country, and they would never do it during their enemy year of China.
Wow.
When China was founded. So, dude, you can look into like so many things. Like for instance, like Donald Trump was born in the year of the dog. Last year was the dragon year. Dragon year is his enemy sign. What happened to Donald Trump? He almost got assassinated that year, and he was getting just tormented on the internet. Like, that was his enemy year. It was not his year to do shit.
Wow.
But he ended up getting in office out of his enemy year. So it was a good time for his 4 years of presidency, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But you can make decisions based off this stuff, and like people are like question it, right? But look, do your own research, man. This stuff really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, if it works, if it sounds true, take it for what it's worth, and if it becomes untrue later. But I think my sister used to do, she'd go to these readers, and like talk about some guy that she liked. Well, does he like me or not? Oh, no, he doesn't like you. Well, okay, what if I wore this? Would he like me? So she just, finally the person's like, okay, yeah, he's going to love you. Just get out of my office. But some people can't, they take it too seriously, Like, I think
you gotta eat the meat and spit out the bones.
This is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, but you need to also kind of, in general, it's not a good year for you to do something important, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to eat the meat, spit out the bones with some of these things, right?
Yeah.
But if it rings true for you, you should pay attention. Pay attention to the signs. And I'm also a snake, and so snakes are. They're very wise, but very lazy. That's like definitely like who I am. But they're also gatekeepers of occult knowledge and hidden truths, hidden knowledge of things. And so I'm designed to know hidden things to help other people see them. And I'm a systems buster. I'm here to challenge belief systems. I'm here to challenge everyone's belief system so they question everything, question the system, question the whole.
Yeah, man, we should be. We should be. We got into this whole many years of like not questioning each other, and not being okay, and like hopefully we'll start talking to each other again.
Yeah, definitely, man.
I think that is really the key to everything, as in the first responder world and everything. Just talk to each other, we're human beings.
Yeah, dude. I mean, your sound healing is so fascinating to me, and I know
can't wait to share it with you, man.
I know you did want to talk about Runestone Ranch.
Oh yeah.
If you want to mention that.
Yeah, I just want to. So for me, I left the fire department. I left there because I knew it was killing me. For whatever reason, it was time for me to go, and went through a lot of healing myself, trying gurus and yoga and alternative methods of healing, I guess. But I was so alone in it. And that's, I'm not, that's how I do, but, there came a time when I started getting into this public speaking, I would talk about, the fire department a little bit and stuff. And some things were emotional, and the people that in the groups would say, this is what you need to be talking about. I'm like, no, never in 100 years, not talking about this stuff. But I finally decided to just look in to see if anybody's talking about mental health, the first responders. And I thought people were talking. You know, there were a few people, and reached out to one guy. He connected me with another guy, and we started making these connections. And then some dude got in touch with me. He was like, "Hey, I want you to meet my partner, Brian." I'm like, "Okay," you know, and we went back and forth, and finally got on the phone with him. We had about 20 minutes to talk, and then we both had to go. And we just hit it off like instantly. He's a retired cop. His partner, Anthony, is, we're both retired cops. Gnarly stuff that happened. They ended up leaving the industry. But at the end of the conversation, he told me he's starting this place he's got this 102-acre ranch in Livermore, California. Gorgeous place, 10 wild Mustangs and a mule running around the property. Beautiful place. And I said, "I'd love to be part of this. You know, how can he?" goes, "We're having our first meeting tomorrow of the founding members. So I'd love for you to come up." So I packed my sound stuff, all my tent and everything, went up there. And the first night, we had some wine with dinner, you know, and then we came out to the fire pit and we're passing around the whiskey bottle. And I don't know who started it, but one person just started telling their story. And you saw this person cracking their heart wide open, tears streaming down their face. And then the next one, and the next one, and the next one, little tiny cop, you know, all this. And the courage and the strength and the trust and the integrity that they had to just put it all out there. And to have been at a point where they were sitting on the edge of their bed with a gun in their mouth, ready to pull the trigger, you know, but surviving when so many of us have not. And this group here was all survivors, and their stories were so powerful. I went from, I'll never talk about this stuff, but I don't have a choice. Like, this is not about me. This is about these incredible people that we're losing, like Kenny. And I, you know, who knows just the way that I saw him, that's a guy that should never have gotten into that depth of depression, I don't think. So anyway, that's all I had to say about that.
Wonderful, man. Well, dude, thanks for coming by.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it, man. It's always good meeting with you and like talking with you, man. Yeah. Definitely love to have you on again, you know, as you progress with your TED Talks. You know?
Yeah. Well, there's some stuff I can't, you know, I want to save for that, but yeah. You know, we're finding each other. I think you were touching on this earlier. It is an age of enlightenment, you know, and you can see people that they're like, there's something, they're starting to question. They're starting to question the paradigm. They're starting to go, how do you know, they're asking questions where that wasn't true even a year ago.
Right.
And I think people are waking up. If you are sensitive to energy, you could feel this energy happening.
Oh, for sure.
And so people like you, hopefully people like me and other people that I'm meeting that are waking up and going, "Hey, I'm learning some of these answers. I want to share them with you." And you being in the department, man, I just want to say I'm so proud of you.
Thanks,
for
man.
standing strong in yourself, for being able to go into the station and lay out your grounding mat, you know. And I mean, yeah, we all have our stuff, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
You know, you're standing strong, and whether your crew's with you or against you or going to make fun of you for that, you're doing it.
Yeah.
And by you doing that, by you telling your story, you're going to allow other people to tell their story and heal, man, collectively, because that's what we're here for, to serve each other.
You got to be the change, man. You got to be the change, and lights will find other lights. Usually how it works, you know. And yeah, dude, it takes time, you know, but you just got to trust yourself, dude. Trust is the key to the universe, man. It really is. And openness is the key to evolution.
Yeah.
So like the more you use those two, they're really hard to work with, but when you gratify them, they're really great qualities to like use as a characteristic to live by, you know.
Yeah.
Anyways, man,
Appreciate
thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for listening. Just remember to like, subscribe, YouTube and Spotify and Apple podcast platforms. I love you guys. Take care.
It's time for Crab Lives.